Hello everyone, welcome to MBBS classes. Myself Dr. Hanifa. Today in this video I'll be talking on acute tonsillitis. Acute tonsillitis, it is an acute inflammation of the palatine tonsils that is generally caused by group A beta hemolytic streptococci. This acute tonsillitis, it can be an isolated episode that is involving only the palatine tonsil, or it can be a part of upper respiratory tract infections. It is seen that this disease, it is a disease mostly of the young children, and the peak age affected is the 5 to 6 years of age. Males and females are equally affected, and it is more commonly seen during the autumn and the winter season. If we look into the etiology of the acute tonsillitis, it can be caused by both viruses and bacteria. Among the bacteria, group A beta hemolytic streptococci is the most common organism, and the infection due to this is also known as streptococcal angina. Then the other bacteria which can cause the acute tonsillitis are Staphylococcus, Haemophilus influenza, pneumococci, spirochetes, and fusiform rods. They can cause the tonsillitis, and in that case it is known as Plott-Vincent angina. Corynebacterium diphtheria, then the disease is called as faucial diphtheria, and very rarely it can also be caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Among the viruses which can cause acute tonsillitis are the influenza and the parainfluenza virus, Epstein-Barr virus, which is the disease is known as infectious mononucleosis. And always remember, tonsillitis due to viral etiology are not as severe as the bacterial cause, except the infectious mononucleosis. Now, coming to the clinical presentation of the acute tonsillitis, it may manifest as fever, the patient will have malaise, then they will give history of sore throat or odynophagia, that means the pain in the throat, or there will be cervical lymphadenopathy, and sometimes they can also present to as the earache. And this otalgia is the referred otalgia. So when you examine these group of patients who are complaining of fever, sore throat and odynophagia, on examination we will get the pyrexia. Then as you can see here, we will get the erythema of the pharynx or the oropharyngeal mucosa. If you see here, the tonsil is erythematous, it is enlarged and whitish exudates can be seen. The membrane or exudate which may be present in the severe cases, and when we examine the neck of the patient, usually the level 2 node, that is the jugulo-digastric node, is enlarged and it is tender. So this is the clinical picture usually we get in the acute tonsillitis. Sometimes the acute tonsillitis is divided based on the morphology. It is divided into four groups: acute catarrhal tonsillitis, second is the acute parenchymatous tonsillitis. On the basis of the look, it can be acute follicular tonsillitis, and last is the acute membranous tonsillitis. In acute catarrhal tonsillitis, as seen in this picture number 1, the tonsillitis, it occurs as a component of the general pharyngitis, and it is a presentation mostly of the viral infections. Then the second group based on the morphology is the acute parenchymatous tonsillitis. In the acute parenchymatous tonsillitis, the tonsils, they are uniformly enlarged and they are erythematous. In the third category is the acute follicular tonsillitis, where when the infection it involves the crypts of the tonsils, then the crypts becomes filled up with the purulent material and they appear as the follicles over the tonsils, and the tonsil in general, they are enlarged, they are inflamed. The fourth type of tonsillitis based on the morphology is the acute membranous tonsillitis. Here what happens, when these follicles they coalesce with each other, when these pus points they combine with each other, they may present as an exudate and they may present as a membrane over the tonsils. So whenever we are getting a membrane over the tonsils, then there is a list of the differential diagnosis we will be discussing in some other video. Now coming to the diagnosis of the acute tonsillitis, the diagnosis is made mainly on the clinical grounds, but When we do the blood investigations, the parameters that suggest the inflammation is the presence of leukocytosis. We may get the elevated ESR and the C-reactive protein. Under the microbiological investigations, this culture and sensitivity, it is the time-honored investigation. The swab must be taken from the tonsils and the posterior pharyngeal wall. This will help us to know about the causative organisms and the type of antibiotic which will be functioning on this group of patients. But it bears the disadvantage of the delay in the reporting, and it takes about 24 to 48 hours. Since we know that the most of the cases of acute tonsillitis, they are caused by the group A beta hemolytic streptococcus. So now the rapid antigen test is available commercially to identify the group A beta hemolyticus streptococcus. The advantage of this test is that the result is faster and we can get it within the 10 minutes. So this is how that kit is available. Rapid antigen test or the rapid streptococcal test. It is an office procedure that gives the faster result. And this rapid immunoassay test, it makes use of the colloid label specific antibodies. And the color change in the result window indicates the presence of group A beta hemolytic streptococci. The specificity and the sensitivity is 80 to 90%. So it is a very helpful tool for clinicians to decide the antibiotic therapy. But there will be some cases where clinically there is a strong suspicion of the streptococcal infection, and if we are getting a negative result in the rapid antigen test, then in that case we must wait for the culture and sensitivity report, and it should always be done. Now coming to the treatment part, the standard treatment protocol for the acute streptococcal tonsillitis is a 7 to 10 days course of penicillin V. But if a patient is allergic to penicillin, then alternative is the macrolide and oral cephalosporins, and alternative is the use of penicillin with beta-lactamase inhibitor, like a combination of amoxicillin and clavulanic acid may be used in these cases. Next is the use of analgesics to relieve the pain, and adequate hydration of the must be maintained. Now let's see the complications of the acute tonsillitis. The complications can be the infective sequelae and it can be the non-infective sequelae. Under the infective complication is the scarlet fever, peritonsillar abscess, which is also known as quinsy. Then there can be the formation of retropharyngeal and the parapharyngeal abscess from the acute tonsillitis. Next is the Lemierre syndrome, chronic tonsillitis, and the recurrent tonsillitis. So these are the infective complications of the acute tonsillitis. Now another group of complication is non-infective, and these are the immune complex disorders, the under which comes the acute rheumatic fever, which affects the major joints, acute glomerulonephritis, which affects the kidney, and the rheumatic endocarditis, which affects the heart. Now let's see one by one the complications of the acute tonsillitis. First is the scarlet fever. The scarlet fever, it is caused by the highly virulent stains of the group A beta hemolytic streptococci that produces scarlet fever endotoxins. So the patient with the scarlet fever, they will present as sore throat with the severe lymphadenopathy. There will be the presence of fever, headache, there will be vomiting and tachycardia. The characteristic feature is the appearance of the erythematous rash that begins on the trunk, and the rash, it spares the area around the mouth. That is, the perioral pallor is present. Another pathognomic feature of the scarlet fever is the presence of the strawberry tongue, as you can see here in this picture. The tongue will be bright red in color, it will have a glistening surface, and the papillas will be hyperplastic papilla like we get in a strawberry. So this type of finding, if we get in the tongue, it is called as the strawberry tongue or raspberry tongue, and it is pathognomic feature of the scarlet fever. In these cases, the tonsils, like acute tonsillitis, it will be inflamed, and sometimes, since it is a highly virulent stain, we may expect some extensive necrotic areas over the pharynx and the oral cavity. So the diagnosis is made on the basis of the clinical picture, and the rapid antigen test to detect the streptococcus. The treatment of the scarlet fever is the use of IV penicillin G, oral antiseptics, and the analgesics. Another common complication of acute tonsillitis is the quinsy, or it is also called as the peritonsillar abscess. It is a unilateral inflammatory process that involves both the tonsil parenchyma and the peritonsillar tissue. And here the pus gets collected in the peritonsillar space. So if you remember the anatomy classes, this is the tonsil which is surrounded by a capsule, and this is the tonsillar bed which is formed by a muscle called the superior constrictor muscle. If you remember, the tonsil capsule is separated from the tonsillar bed by one space called the peritonsillar space, and in this space we get the loose areolar tissue. So when the infection it spreads beyond the parenchyma of the tonsil, and when the pus is collected in this peritonsillar space, it is called as quinsy. It is seen that the spread of infection is from the superior pole. This is the superior pole of the tonsil, with the pus formation initiating from here. These group of patients, they will present to you as severe unilateral pain. The pain will be one-sided along with the presence of fever. They will have muffled speech and the trismus, that is unable to open the mouth completely, and because of the severe unilateral pain they might present as drooling of the saliva with odynophagia and sometimes dysphagia also. The reason for the trismus is that there is a irritation of the pterygoid group of muscles. So when we examine a case of peritonsillar abscess, classically we will get a pronounced unilateral swelling of the tonsillar area, and the tonsils will be pushed medially to the opposite side. So if you see here, this is the right side of the tonsil which is inflamed, and the swelling is unequal. This is the left side and this is the right side, and it is pushing the uvula to the opposite side. So whenever we are getting these group of patients, then we must advise the CT scan of the neck. In these cases, the CT scan neck with contrast is advised to know whether it is the pus is collected in only in the peritonsillar space or it is extending beyond. The treatment is drainage of the abscess under the antibiotic coverage, and usually the antibiotic is given to cover both the aerobic and the anaerobic organisms. And a case of quinsy must always be advised tonsillectomy after a gap of 4 to 12 weeks. Next complication is the parapharyngeal abscess. Mostly it occurs as a sequelae of quinsy, that is the peritonsillar abscess or the retropharyngeal abscess. It occurs when the pus it drains from the tonsils or the peritonsillar space through the superior constrictor muscle. So if you see here, this is a diagram, this is the tonsil area, this is the mandible bone. If you remember, this is the parotid, and this is the parapharyngeal space. So whenever a patient is getting peritonsillar abscess, there is a high chance that the pus or infection can track down beyond the superior constrictor muscle and it can come and get collected in the parapharyngeal space. In these cases, the abscess is located between the superior constrictor muscle and the deep cervical fascia. And what happens clinically in these cases, the tonsils get displaced again medially, and it may mimic again the peritonsillar abscess. The patient will be systematically very ill. They will have a severe trismus, and sometimes there may be an airway compromise due to the involvement of the pterygoid muscle and the paraspinal muscle. So whenever we are getting a very medially pushed tonsils, inflamed tonsils, then the two differential diagnoses must always be kept in mind. First is the quinsy and second is the presence of parapharyngeal abscess. So always advise CT scan neck with contrast. The treatment again is under broad spectrum antibiotic coverage. If there is a parapharyngeal abscess, the abscess must be drained by an external approach. Next complication is the retropharyngeal abscess. It is a rare complication of acute tonsillitis, but it is a serious complication, and when it occurs, the age group which is most commonly affected is the children, yes, less than 5 years of age. Here what happens, the infection, it tracks down from the tonsils into the lymphoid tissue between the posterior pharyngeal wall and the prevertebral fascia. So if you remember, this is the buccopharyngeal fascia, and this buccopharyngeal fascia is adherent to the prevertebral fascia in midline. So whenever there is a retropharyngeal abscess or a collection of the pus in the retropharyngeal space, the abscess will be unilateral. So how to suspect? Whenever a child suffering from acute tonsillitis becomes systematically ill and when they develop airway compromise. In that case, the first thing which should come to mind is the development of retropharyngeal abscess. Then in those cases, advise CT scan neck with contrast because it helps in the diagnosis and in planning the management. The treatment of the retropharyngeal abscess being incision and drainage per orally is done under the general anesthesia. Another rare complication of acute tonsillitis can be Lemierre syndrome. So the Lemierre syndrome is characterized by the septic thrombophlebitis of the internal jugular vein, and this complication can occur as a complication of any oropharyngeal infections. The organism which is responsible for this syndrome is the fusiform bacilli. Clinical presentation of this syndrome is that whenever a patient with the oropharyngeal infection presents with or develops new symptoms like severe neck pain, septicemia, then think about the Lemierre syndrome. Treatment is antibiotic is given for a 6 weeks duration, and sometimes we need to add anticoagulants if there is a evidence of spreading thrombophlebitis. The last complication of acute tonsillitis being the recurrent and the chronic tonsillitis. So some patients after an attack of acute tonsillitis may develop the recurrent attacks of throat infection. The frequency may be multiple times in a year, and what happens in these group of patients, there is due to the recurrent inflammation of the tonsils, it leads to the permanent structural damage of the tonsillar parenchyma and it leads to the scarring of the tonsil. And in this case, the tonsils become septic foci for the other parts of the body. Symptoms is like these group of patients, they will have a recurrent episode of throat pain, complaints of soreness of the throat, there will be lethargy, bad taste in the mouth, or there may be halitosis. So examination, generally we get cryptic type of tonsils like small firm tonsils, and we will get the flushing of the anterior pillar. As you can see, this is the anterior pillar, and there will be enlarged jugulo-digastric nodes which may not be tender. So the treatment is tonsillectomy under general anesthesia. Next set of complication of acute tonsillitis is the non-infective. Till now we have seen the infective complications. So under the non-infective complications, these are basically the immune complex disorders. That is, the immune complex is formed as a response to the infection, mainly after post-streptococcal infection. So what happens after the streptococcal infection? There may be a delayed type antigen antibody reaction which may affect the different organ system. Like kidneys, it can cause the acute glomerulonephritis. The patient will develop acute nephritic syndrome 1 to 2 weeks after the acute streptococcal infections. The reason being there is a similarity between the antigen of the glomerulus and the streptococcus. Then when it affects the major joints, then it can cause the acute rheumatic fever, but it is not very common nowadays. When it affects the heart, it is called the rheumatic endocarditis. With this, I come to an end of this video. Thank you for watching this video.